everybody. Welcome to episode 30 of Are We There Yet? This one is called Go See the Doctor. I'm your host, Susan Ruth.
You're so cute. I'm your host, Mara Adelman, and we are two humans. We're going to have the real conversations and raise all those questions that we have about where is there when it comes to dating, relationships, and sex. And tell me where your there is with this cute get up. I love it.
I in honor of our STD conversation, I thought I'd wear a raincoat.
Cover it up, people. Put on that raincoat. Today, we're going to be talking about dating and sexually transmitted infections, which is something that has to be brought up. It's not the funnest, sexiest topic, but as a medical provider, I'm like, we kind of got to talk about it.
Yeah.
So my there is very fascinating. I was on Bumble and there was a guy, like everything was like, oh, I like him. And at the bottom, he said, I love herpes. And I realized that was his way of saying he has herpes and getting it out there, which I thought was amazing. Like,
Right.
just say it, like be radically honest, vulnerable. We always talk about that. So I thought it was very cool. We chatted a little bit and then it kind of fell off. Here was my thinking on this. I was like, am I worried about that? Well, of course, but if he knows how to manage it, the numbers now, the statistics on, the problem is there's like 100 million different statistics, but essentially like 50% of the population has type 1, which can lead to oral or genital. That's half the planet. 80 million people in America. At least 1 in 5 adults in the United States, and I call bullshit. I think it's more like
80 million? There's only 330 some odd million people in the US. That's
what
high.
No, the number, and again, this is the reported number. So when they're saying 1 in 5, I'm like, no. It's probably more like 3 in 5. So here was my thinking with this guy. I was like, if you're having sex with somebody and they have herpes and they don't know it, they can still spread it.
Yeah.
So this poor guy comes into the clinic one day and he's mortified. He's got like his first outbreak on his penis. It's miserable. It's uncomfortable. He's getting married in 2 days. And he is losing his shit. He's like, I did not cheat. My wife is going to think I cheated. I did not cheat. And we went through this whole thing. I was so sad. I was like, I mean, of course I believed him. I was like, what happened is he got highly stressed. He'd probably been carrying the virus for a really long time. Poof, out comes the virus. And so the problem is everybody assumes like so if he had been dating, he would have been like, that last person I slept with gave me herpes. I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way. So unfortunately, so we'll go back to, let's start back at the most, what's the most prevalent STD? Do
HPV.
HPV. Oh,
yeah.
So
basically they say if you've had sex, and if you've had sex with somebody who wasn't a virgin, like if you were a virgin and they were a virgin, you're fine. But other than that, everybody has HPV, which is fascinating. I get tested for it every year when I get my gynecological exams, and I, every time I see that negative, I'm like, whoo, because that can cause all sorts of things like the cancer and throat cancers and anal cancers, all this kind of stuff. So that's
all the cancers,
all the cancery things.
That is why you should go get your, so we used to call it the yearly pap smear. It's actually changed. If you're under 35, it's supposed to be every 3 years. And if
that's ridiculous.
I know, but there's statistics around it. And then if you're over 35, it's every 5 years, as long as you haven't had abnormals. The reasoning for that is that HPV generally grows really slow. Also,
nobody's ever said to me, oh, you're over 35, you should only go every 5 years. Every gynecological doctor I've ever had is like, all right, see you next year. I don't think they don't even agree with it. I think that's an insurance company thing, honest to God.
Honestly, well, it's a numbers game because you're going to end up with a bunch of false colposcopies and things that don't need to be. We'll go into this another time, but medicine's pretty much broken. There's like 5 different guidelines on what year you should start your mammograms. Like nobody can agree on any of this stuff.
Yeah.
But bottom line, make sure you're up to date with whatever makes you feel comfortable in your provider on your pap smear, because that's the only way to see if you have HPV in the cervix.
Yeah.
For men, it's more if you have lesions on the penis. And like for me, I had HPV when I was 20. I had my first pap, like somewhere like, we had to start pap smears at 16. So I'd had a bunch of pap smears by then. And then I had HPV and it cleared itself. It went away. They found it on my pap smear. And now they don't even start pap smears till 21 because young people tend to just clear HPV. They just clear it. So this is the point in medicine. They used to start people at 16, which means all these young people were having unnecessary pap smears, unnecessary.
Oh God, I think I started getting pap smears at like 15 or 16.
I know. So now it's 21, but go get it for HPV. And then there's a lot of
you have to ask for a lot of the STDs. You have to ask.
That was my thing, is the misconceptions are big. Say you go in because you feel like you have a yeast infection. And then they do a pelvic and they look and say, oh, you have a yeast infection. Many people think that that's their pap smear. That is so, and that they've checked for every sexually transmitted infection. It doesn't.
Nope. You have to ask.
Say, I want you to check me for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to ask. And for men, that involves an uncomfortable Q-tip down the penis shot, down the urethra.
Not anymore. There was only one.
Good.
Now they get to pee in a cup.
Oh.
Just as I got into medicine 20 years ago, the cup came along, but there was this one guy that kept repeatedly cheating on his wife, and I was really hoping I could use the Q-tip to maybe deter him from continually getting gonorrhea and chlamydia. I don't know. But now they get to pee in a cup. That would have been mean. I didn't do it. So the other interesting thing about, going back to herpes, just because it's the most stigmatized one, this is fascinating. I had this thought the other day. I was coming down with something and I was on a date and I thought, oh God, what if it's COVID? And I give them COVID and it's a virus. Well, herpes is a virus. It's so crazy when things get stigmatized, how stigmatized they are. Say I go on a date and I kiss somebody and then I get COVID 2 days later and I call them up and I'm like, dude, I'm so sorry. I have COVID. I hope you don't get COVID. Okay, I understand you couldn't have controlled that, right? Mm-hmm. Now imagine if it was you had sex with somebody and 2 days later you're like, oh, I just had a herpes.
But there is some control around that. There's getting regularly tested if you're sexually active, and there's using condoms and protection.
Oh, condoms on. But unfortunately, condoms don't. The raincoats don't 100% protect from the herpes or the HPV from a lot of the STDs. But that is a good point. So this comes up all the time. I have patients all the time saying, "Can you just test me for herpes?"
Well, nothing's 100%, but I think it's important that we state it's still better than not having it.
Oh no, totally. Yeah. But you should get.
I don't want anybody to go, well, Susan Amara said that you could still get it. That's an excuse to not wear.
No. Wear a condom, please. But also, this comes up all the time. Patients are always like, can you do the blood test for herpes? So the general screening stuff that we do as medical providers is syphilis, because syphilis is crazily on the uprise, HIV and gonorrhea and chlamydia. And we'll go into those, them briefly really quick. But the problem is we don't test for herpes. We only test for HPV if we're doing the pap smear. I went in a while back because it felt weird when I swallowed. So there are uprises of oral cancer from HPV. So if you're feeling like extremely different than normal, go see your doctor. They might refer you to ear, nose, and throat. They put a little camera down, they look and they go, oh, you're fine. But there are increases. I had a female, older Hispanic patient, probably based on culture, not very many sexual partners, and her throat was hurting. And I said, oh, wow. And her entire tonsil was like scalloped, like warty looking. It looked like warts. And I was like, oh my God, I think she has oral HPV, and she did. It looks exactly like warts, but it was all in the back.
Oh, wow. Oh, that must have hurt.
Yeah, she was having pain, but she didn't understand. So it is on the uprise. So if you're younger and you are interested, there is the vaccines for HPV. Go think about getting them, right? Mm-hmm. But the problem is, going back to the herpes thing. So there's blood tests that can tell you, do you have antibodies to type 1 herpes and do you have antibodies to type 2 herpes? It doesn't really tell you much other than you've been exposed and it's probably living somewhere in your body, right? But type 1, okay, so your grandma kissed you with a cold sore, you got exposed. It doesn't tell you where it is in your body, right? Mm-hmm. And so the only really good testing I've decided to do that for people is when you've got 2 people that have herpes and you have concordant, they want to have sex without condoms. So if you test and they both have type 1 and they both have type 2, well, now they don't need to use condoms. Does that make sense?
A friend of mine has herpes. She got it from a boyfriend way, way back in college. She didn't know he had it. He didn't know he had it, but she's been really terrified to date ever since because she's so scared about she's dated here and there, but she's so scared about having that conversation. I told her, I was like, I'm telling you, man, like lots of people seem to have this disease. I think you're okay. I think if you bring it up, you probably are going to eventually find somebody who's like, yeah, okay, me too, or whatever.
I feel like, look at the numbers. The odds are somebody's going to go, me too. Although I was listening to this podcast, I think we linked it down below. It made me sad. There was this girl who had herpes and she would date people for a month or 2 or 3, really get to know them and then bring up the conversation. Almost kind of like now that we know each other better, you'll accept this of me. And then every single time they wouldn't. That breaks my heart. I
Oh.
almost feel like maybe it shouldn't be so long down the road.
Yeah, I
Like,
think that's a conversation that if you're going to be intimate or whatnot, maybe have that talk again outside of the bedroom.
outside of the bedroom.
Yeah.
Dr. Emily, she's my favorite, Sex with Emily. She says timing, tone, and turf. That is not a laying in bed. By the way, let me tell you about my herpes conversation, right? But there's no shame. What I'm trying to say is there's no shame, because like you said, she'd probably say to somebody, I have herpes, and he'd be like, I do too.
Mhm.
Right? So it's worth having the conversation for sure.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, I get this from men all this. So then we go into like gonorrhea, chlamydia, and all the other ones. Men, most of the time, do not have any symptoms with gonorrhea and chlamydia. So they'll always say to me, I don't need to get tested. I don't have any symptoms. I said, well, have you had sex without a condom ever? Let's put if you have not used your raincoat every single time, and they'll go, oh yeah, maybe you should test me. So then it moves on to that, right? And then syphilis, oy vey, it's making a huge comeback. There's
Especially in the elderly community, it's big time.
in the elderly.
Mhm.
I did not know that.
Big time.
I'm going to start testing my older patients for STDs. They're getting all wonky, huh? They're having fun. I like it that older people are having fun. So unfortunately with syphilis, the biggest problem with that is there's primary, secondary, latent, and tertiary, which means it moves through these phases and people don't always know they have it. Fevers, rashes, weird symptoms. If you're having sex without condoms, just get tested for it. If it gets to tertiary, it's in the brain and it causes a bunch of neurological problems. So you want to kind of catch that on the earlier side.
Yeah. That was a good house episode. This older woman had syphilis. She was really happy and joyful. And he's like, it's in your brain. She's like, can you just give me enough to stop it where it is now? Because I feel really good. So funny.
Like whatever this is oh, that's funny. I like it. Yeah, I just feel like it's a part of the conversation. Again, with that, I had that client that was hadn't had sex yet, and I said it's going to be interesting. Like you are free and clear of all things, and so it's really worth having the conversation with somebody you're sleeping with. Have they gone to get their STD testing? Can you ask them to go do that if you're going to sleep with them? So imagine now you're wanting to go have sex for the first time, and now it's just this whole. Our 2 weeks ago, we talked about dating and fear and sex and fear. And
that should be a concern whether you're 13 or 30 or 70. It should be your health is a priority and the health of your partner is a priority. So it's important to say. And remember, you can also get STDs from sex toys and
yes.
clean your sex toys, y'all.
Yes. You can put condoms on them if you need to.
If you go from anal to vaginal, that's an issue. Because you can pick up stuff that way too. I mean, it's okay to have the conversation. It's so important.
It's
so important. And if you're with a partner who isn't down, is like, no thanks, I'm not interested in that, then they're not the right partner, and that's okay. And then you keep going, till you meet the right partner.
You need to find somebody who's willing to have the conversation about this stuff, right?
Yeah, and you might even find the other person who matches your energy.
Right? All of that.
Yeah.
Here's the good news. So 20 years ago when I got into medicine, HIV was like scary, scary, scary. Have you ever watched that movie? When everybody should watch this movie just to understand how far we've come. The Band Played On. Have you ever watched that? Yes. It's essentially, the HIV crisis and the AIDS and everybody passing away. I mean, huge amounts of people at one point. And nobody wanted to go near them or take care of them. All the lesbians came in and took care of all the homosexuals came in and took care of them and made sure they were okay and got them. And a lot of them didn't have their families. It gives me goosebumps. I'm going to watch it again someday. It's a heavy movie, but I think it's important. Now I was hanging out with one of my gay friends and we all went out and we're all partying. He's like, hey, I'm going to take off. And what are you doing? He's like, I got a date. So he's showing me his grinder. I love the openness about this. It's essentially like HIV positive. Or the next one's on PrEP. And so PrEP is the prophylaxis HIV, 99% sure you won't contract HIV. If you're a highly sexual person, you should be on it. So we have come so far. And I'm a little jealous all the time of the gay community because it's just so open and honest. He went over there and had some, went and partied with somebody and then they didn't really hit it off. So he went and found somebody else to hang out with and safe sex and like everybody's open and honest about everything instead of
well, I wouldn't go unilaterally that way because
I know. I always do. I tend to generalize. Everybody's open and honest.
Yeah.
I just liked it. I liked it.
Yeah.
So that's all I got. Oh, I forgot about, there's a couple other ones that are really interesting. Trichomonas. Have you heard of trichomonas?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a little flagella-like thing. So again, not using condoms with somebody, there's no way to test for it though. But if as a female, you start getting like a really bad vaginitis, it might be actually sexually spread. It's the only vaginitis that is sexually spread.
I'm going to blow your mind. When I was dating somebody back when I lived in Seattle and we went to get tested, right? We went to the University of Washington to get tested together before we were going to sleep together. And this is a teaching hospital. And it just so happened that the day that we went in, the nurse said, well, we're doing a study right now. If you're cool with it, for free, we're going to test you for 75 sexually transmitted diseases. I about fell out of my chair. I was like, I'm sorry, what? 75?
Oh,
They're like, yeah, we
yeah.
test for about 75 known sexually transmitted diseases. I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ. I was blown away by that. So we're like, yeah, of course, like, why wouldn't we do that? Free testing like that.
Yeah.
But I was like, what?
Yeah. It's,
Yeah.
But again,
I'm sure there's more now.
Not to detract from how amazing sex is, right? It's just, you just do your pieces, people, talk about it. And my favorite link down below, we put a resource to herpes.com. So if you have herpes or you're curious about herpes, you should go on there and figure out how to have those conversations. Please don't let it be the reason you're not dating. Like, if you don't want to date, don't date. But if the reason you're not, you can find me and we can talk through all of this. Lovecoachmeyer.com.
There's Valtrex for people that keep
Valtrex.
I think L-lysine is another like a natural
Lysine's amazing. My cat's on it because cats get eye herpes, which isn't spreadable to people, but I put the cat on lysine. So lysine is great to keep you from having outbreaks.
And then gonorrhea, chlamydia, obviously medicine will fix that up. Syphilis, I think it depends on where you are in the cycle of the syphilis, right? As you were mentioning.
Either way, though, it's a lot of very painful shots of penicillin, so use your condom.
Rabies, you're screwed.
Well, don't get bit by a monkey. Don't let your partner bite you if they've been exposed to monkeys. Overall, though, I think more importantly is talk about it and then go have lots of fun sex, and don't let these things be a reason not to have a sex life. Okay.
Yeah. Be open, be loving, be careful, and be vulnerable.
Be vulnerable. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. Be vulnerable. It's okay to say, I'm scared to tell you this, but hey, this is what's going on. Yeah. And in 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about somatic work. So how to connect your body and your mind and your heart and like bring it all together for dating, sex, and relationships. And then after that, we're going to have somebody come speak to that. So yeah, in 2 weeks.
Yeah, we have a best-selling author, Andrew Daniel. He's gonna come be a guest to talk about all the stuff he knows.
I love that because I don't know a lot about somatic work, but I do feel like it's what I personally need is to like calm the stress response, bring the body, heart, and mind all kind of into one place. So I'm gonna do a bunch of research on it and we'll talk about it in 2 weeks.
Yay! And remember, you can always reach out to us, and YouTube is sometimes squirrely about links. So if there is more information that you would like, reach out to Mara. It's her work. It's what she does. I'm here for the comic relief. So
with her raincoat today, that was that made my day. Yeah, if anybody has questions and stuff, I like to work through this stuff with people because really we're just normalizing the fact that we're all kind of struggling through this stuff, and how can you process it and date if that's what you want and be happy and find somebody that makes you happy. That's the goal.
What I appreciate about you, Mara, if I may say, is that if you don't know something, you are really great about like, I'm going to go look that up, or I'm going to find that out. And that's great because a lot of people are like, are weird about stuff like that. But you are really good about that. If you don't know something, you're going to find out. So that's good.
We were taught that in medicine. Medicine literally changes every 5 years. So there's no way to keep up with all of it. Yeah. And so whenever you get that little thing, I don't know. Hold on. Let me go do some research for you. So yeah, I do like to research the stuff. So yes, if you need more links or anybody needs help, find me. And
the quiz. There's a quiz too.
Oh, the quiz. We forgot the quiz.
Yeah.
Do you know your STDs? How well did you score?
I got 100% on the STD quiz. Yay!
I did too. I guess I would have been embarrassed as a medical provider if I wouldn't have got 100%. But again, we don't have to know it all. Nobody knows it all.
Yeah.
We're all just, what's that saying? We're all just walking each other through life.
Also, I do want to say one more thing. We're always walking each other home, but I do want to say one more thing is that please, if you do experience symptoms of something, don't wait until it goes too far. I took a human sexuality class in college, and I'll never forget going through that book and seeing examples of things that had just been left because people were scared to go to the doctor. There are free clinics, there's Planned Parenthood. There's your regular doctor, there's, walk-in, whatever, they're trained medical professionals. They will see you, they will help you. Don't let stuff like that go, because it could screw you up for your reproductive, you make it hard for you to have kids. It could give you brain damage. It could cause cancers. Like, there's a lot of stuff. And I know that's scary to go hear that conversation, but it's so important to take care of you.
Don't put it off. Go, what do we call today? Call the doctor, go to the doctor.
Yeah. It's what's it called? It's go see the doctor.
Go see the doctor, everybody, if you need to. But if you've had sex without a condom, go see the doctor. Get your testing done.
If you had sex with a condom and you're experiencing symptoms,
go see the doctor.
Condoms are great. They are not the end all be all, but they are great. So,
Also, don't forget about dental dams, and it's okay to use a condom when you give a blowjob.
Yeah.
My last words of advice for the day.
Hey, thank you, Mara. I love you.
I love you. See you in a couple weeks.
Bye.